Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That Nerdy Site Show, a weekly podcast where the team members from That Nerdy Site get together to talk about our lives and all of the nerdy things we love about them. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and we took last week off because Cameron wasn't feeling well, but Cameron is back. How you doing, Cam?
Doing a lot better.
Good, good, good. Last week we were going to talk about like Metal Gear and stuff like that, which we'll eventually still talk about because I've been playing Metal Gear 5 and the original Metal Gear for the first time. Metal Gear Solid, that is. But today, of course, Deadpool and Wolverine came out this weekend, and we went and saw it Thursday night. So we're going to do, as usual, our full-blown spoiler-casty kind of things for it. As always, we're going to talk spoiler-free stuff first, and before diving fully into spoilers. So check out the time codes for that kind of stuff if you have not yet seen it, and or want to just jump straight to our spoiler thoughts. If you like what you hear, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. So spoiler free first, Cam. What did you think here of Deadpool and Wolverine?
I thought it was fantastic. I think that this is a perfect kind of like capstone to the trilogy of the Deadpool films. I feel like it continues to show the people behind it have, they understand. If you've been listening to our That D Plus show on Deadpool 2, or even the earlier one on Deadpool 1, you know that my biggest thing about it is like people, especially today's comic book writers, get way too lost into the kind of like memey, kind of like viral sort of nonsense that Deadpool is part of the fourth wall breaking aspect of Deadpool, but they get lost in that and they really miss the core crux of that character, which is it's a really broken, damaged person wanting to wanting to do good in their own kind of like really messed up way. Like the core of the character is he has a good heart, and his heart's always usually in the right place. All that being said, they continue to that like they absolutely still get that, nail that, and
There's a whole repeated plot point and motif of the second movie that his heart wasn't in the right place yet.
yep. And and so like that's a great like they continue to know who Deadpool is. Ryan Reynolds continue like he's gone from being like just the star to producer to now like one of the writers. Really help like the core group of people they have for this film who built this film understand the core of not just Deadpool but also Wolverine, like the core crux of what makes Wolverine's character work, and they deliver on it. I think my spoiler-free reaction to it is I think it's fantastic. I don't think it's the best of the Deadpool films, but I think they're like we'll get into that during spoiler stuff about why I think that, but I will say at like top level, it is just a fantastic film, a like brilliant love letter to like the era of Marvel films that it's kind of like a part of, and does it in a way that only a film that is starring Deadpool can do it. Mm-hmm. And so a massive shout out to them for everything they put together for it. Also making it work sense. If you're like, well, how does it work with the rest of the greater MCU? It's like, it does. And it does it in the most like, in my opinion, the best way they could do it. Also establishing kind of like where the Fox films sit within the multiverse of Marvel. They do a great job of that. So all that being said, it's fantastic. I highly recommend you go out and see it. Or watch it when it comes out on demand. I don't think this is one of those movies that this is like a tentpole, like you got to go out to the theaters to see it. I think it's a great film to go out and see, though. It was just like Trevor and I went the other night and we had a blast seeing it. It was, we had a whole lot of fun. It's everything you really want out of another Deadpool film while also delivering you things you didn't think that you wanted out of a Deadpool film. So there you go.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it, and I think to your final point there, if you are spoiler averse, I would say like you'll want to see this in theaters as soon as possible, because if you haven't already been spoiled by things, even the marketing material was spoiling things like a week or so ahead of release. And there are a lot of fun things in here that are very fun moments to have if you don't know they're coming. The movie is, I would say this is a movie akin to like a Spider-Man No Way Home kind of event film of like, hey, yeah, it is not only, wrapping up this trilogy of Deadpool films, but it is also a, send off to the Fox 20th Century Fox films and like the non MCU movies that came before it. Basically, Deadpool is kind of being the standard bearer for that, and you know, maybe rightfully so, given that his movies were among, if not the most successful of the non Marvel, like of the Fox Marvel movies. So I think it's a fun send off in that I think it does suffer from it's trying to do so many things. So ultimately, the story kind of gets a little bit short shrift, but performances are fun. I think it also probably suffered from writers' strike stuff. The writers and actors strike. It was very notoriously like had to stop filming for a while during the actors and writers strike until kind of all that came back together. And it was also notoriously kind of in development hell for a little while there, but before even the Fox acquisition. It was, hey, what are we going to do? How are we going to, you know, continue on the Deadpool thing after Deadpool 2? And I think it does interestingly, and for me, yeah, satisfactorily, like weave its way into the Marvel series of films in a way that, yeah, I think Deadpool is the one that can largely get away with the things that Deadpool is doing here. But they have a lot of fun with it, and I think everyone behind the film was really trying to celebrate kind of what came before. So yeah, shout out to that. Some very fun action sequences in this one, although I think some of them suffer from lackluster cinematography in terms of the action of the fight. Like the choreography of the fight in a lot of them is very fun, but there's really only like one or two that I was like really happy with, like how they kind of were paid off compared to how I think the fights have been done in the past. But yeah, it's very fun seeing Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman up there, and it is very much a Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman movie. They're very much front and center 90% of the time in this thing, which I think there is an element of that leads me to I think I described it as like they Fantastic Beast the rest of the cast, in that like a lot of the other Deadpool characters very much kind of like had to take a back seat in their own franchise, a la the Fantastic Beast core cast took a back seat to the Grindelwald and Dumbledore series because J.K. Rowling is a bad writer and doesn't actually know how to write a good story, aside from being just a transphobe. She had fun world building, and that can only get you so far. So yeah, I think this movie suffered a little bit from that, compared to like what I would have liked to have seen from a Deadpool 3, especially, yeah, hot off the heels of rewatching Deadpool and Deadpool 2. But it also is a fun re-send off to Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. If it's a send off, who knows what's actually going to happen there. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. A very lighthearted, good, fun time. And clearly a lot of the world agreed, because it looks like it blew records away for the like biggest R-rated opening and all that fun stuff over the weekend. So, yeah, I think if you are feeling burnt out on the MCU stuff, this might be a fun thing to kind of like reinvigorate your enjoyment. It's probably up there like with, you know, Guardians 3 in terms of like good recent output from the MCU. But also has some of the like stumbling blocks that like the Marvels had or something like that. But it is also our only real Marvel thing this year, apart from Agatha All Along coming out later on Disney Plus this year. So yeah, there we go. Any final thoughts before we dive into full spoiler stuff here, Cam?
No, I think we're good to just hop into it.
Yeah, so last chance to duck away. Both Cam and I really enjoyed it, had a fun time with it. Especially, this is another thing, to your point of like maybe wait until streaming. I think this was a lot of fun seeing it with a crowd.
Oh, the crowd was awesome to see it with.
That was a very enjoyable experience in a way that, yeah, a lot of Marvel stuff hasn't necessarily been recently. And this very much had No Way Home vibes. It had Spider-Verse vibes in terms of like the Easter eggs and the cameos and the fun, like crowd popping moments that you can get out of a Marvel movie like this. Yeah, it was a good time. I think what was it? Joey Noelle said that this was maybe her favorite Marvel thing in theater since Thor Ragnarok, and from like a pure like laughs per minute kind of thing, I probably agree with that.
Absolutely,
it was a ton of fun. Certainly one of my favorite post Endgame Marvel things that they've done.
It might be my favorite post Endgame Marvel.
I mean, again, like you've got No Way Home out there, so I think that's probably the top. Spider-Man No Way Home for me is
yeah, no,
my
I
favorite.
can agree with you on that actually. Yeah.
But,
it took me a minute to make that decision, but yes,
yeah,
I would say so.
But like it's in that same conversation because both films are obviously like paying off almost 25 years or 25-ish years worth of films and stories and beats and stuff like that. So yeah. So those are our spoiler-free thoughts. So last chance here to duck away if you are spoiler wary. Go check it out. Come back and listen to our thoughts if you want to hear what we thought about the spoilery things and kind of a more detailed breakdown of what we liked, what we didn't like. But overall, a very fun time, but certainly not like a perfect movie or not the highest of highs from the MCU, I would say still. But a certainly solid outing. I'd probably throw it in like the 8 out of 10 range. Like I had a great time with it. It was a lot of fun. So all right. Spoiler time talking beginning now-ish. So Cam, I feel like the biggest spoilery things in this are the cameos, the overabundance of cameos. Some of them had been like leaked and like there had been reports, but there were also a lot of reports that like turned out to not be real. So that was a fun thing. And in some of the stuff I've kind of been reading or seeing, kind of following up, apparently Marvel kind of like deliberately leaked some fake leaks to
it was smart,
sites and stuff to kind of tease what might be out there, what might not be out there, or keep people guessing.
It was certainly in the vein of what was it? Was the trying to remember what it was. It was the scene that leaked, like basically like it was a set photo that leaked, and Ryan Reynolds and a bunch of people went around on Twitter posting like bad Photoshop versions of it.
Oh, I don't know what. I don't know what.
Oh, there was a whole photo set thing that was leaked, and so they were like, "Oh no, can you believe this person shows up?" And it was done to like kind of make fun of all that, but it's certainly in the same vein of like throwing out things to kind of throw people off.
Yeah. So what were some of your favorites here in the film, cameo wise?
I mean, I'm just gonna put it out there. Having Wesley Snipes come back as Blade, wild.
That was there. That was one of the two that I never would have guessed in a million years.
Followed up by Gambit.
Yeah, Channing Tatum.
Channing Tatum was Gambit.
So diving into those, like it was as I alluded to, that was like that sequence where we get like Elektra coming out first, Jennifer Garner's Elektra coming out first. That had been like announced in like casting reports years ago. So it was one of those like, oh, like that's interesting. And like, what is that going to mean for, like, what kind of story are they telling if they're bringing like, not only like obviously they're bringing Hugh Jackman back in, but they're also like digging back deeper and pulling in Elektra, and like, are they going to try and get Ben Affleck to be Daredevil, and like what other things are they going to be doing? But yeah, Blade, Wesley Snipes coming back for Blade or as Blade, was such a like wild thing, especially if you are familiar with like all of the like notorious Blade Trinity on-set disputes that Wesley Snipes and Ryan Reynolds famously had, where it's like, oh, they buried the hatchet to work through that. One of the things we saw it Thursday night, which is also when they did their big like Hall H surprise screening of it, and they brought out kind of all of those cameos after the fact, and Ryan Reynolds like introduces him as, and my friend Wesley Snipes as Blade, everybody. And like it seems like it makes it a point to be like, no, we're okay now, or yeah, at least like saying my friend, and
It
not,
was
and
20
not just,
years
like,
ago.
introducing Wesley Snipes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I remember reading something about it, how like Wesley Snipes didn't like Ryan Reynolds' humor on the Blade Trinity set, but he actually found it to be really enjoyable on the Deadpool set. So he's like, it's like oh, okay. But
Yeah.
also, for people who don't know, Wesley Snipes was notoriously hard to work with.
A lot of the stories I've been seeing kind of were like Wesley Snipes was very like method, kind of like really got in and stayed in character, and Ryan Reynolds was just cracking jokes, improvising, ad-libbing, trying to make people break for like blooper reels and stuff like that. And that was not at all vibing with what Wesley Snipes was bringing to that series. And obviously that was Wesley Snipes' series. Ryan Reynolds just coming in for the third movie. It also, I think it was like, in addition to it being like a holy shit, that's wild. And like, as somebody who's never watched or seen the Blade movies.
Oh, wow. Really? Okay.
Yeah, I've never seen any of them.
I still keep Blade up there as like a top tier Marvel film.
I know a lot of people do, and it's like, it's not a character I've ever really had any particular attachment to, but it very much is like the first Blade's 1998, I think, and so it's like, if that hadn't been the success that it was, Spider-Man wouldn't have had the money that it got, X-Men wouldn't have had the money that it got, and those franchises wouldn't really. Like, Blade is the thing that kickstarts the modern era of comic book movies.
Yeah, people don't realize that.
And so, yeah, it was a very fitting, like, especially going back to the, like, let's do a send-off of all of the Fox movies that kind of came before that weren't in the Marvel banner. This thing that really jump-started it all is, I think, a very fitting thing. I almost wish there had been one more in there for Nicolas Cage's Ghost Rider. I think that would have been like that is the franchise that I think of that didn't really get any due in this of the non MCU movies, but still, yeah, it was a lot of fun, and maybe that wasn't even a Fox thing. I don't know. Maybe that's a Sony one. I don't know all the rights on the Ghost Rider ones, but him coming out, and then just the 1-2 punch of holy shit, it's Blade, and then holy shit, it's Channing Tatum, who I think has become like one of these, like, he is like he's up there with like with Stan Lee in terms of like the cameo masters. Like, he pops up in so many things where you don't expect him to pop up in. And he's almost always a delight in doing it. In particular, I'm thinking of like This Is the End.
Oh yeah, This Is the End. I think is his most famous one.
His This Is the End cameo. I really like his cameo in Ready Player One, or not Ready Player One, The Fall Guy. Sorry.
The Fall Guy. His cameo in The Fall Guy is incredible.
Yeah, where he basically is the avatar of the player out there doing the Fortnite dances and stuff. So like, yeah, for him to pop up in this story that I had completely forgotten, but as soon as he comes on screen, I'm like, oh, that's right, he was supposed to be Gambit, and that thing just never happened. Wow. And they just fully lean into that, and he's like fully, like, he's giving, I think, a very exaggerated version of what his version of that character would have been, but it was such a nice, like, he finally got the thing that he had been wanting to do. And obviously, like, he came out at Comic-Con wearing the same Gambit shirt that he came out in a decade ago, when they had announced that he was going to be playing Gambit in, a new X-Men thing or a new standalone thing. And so for him to finally get to like pay that off here, and then like them to just fully lean into it and have fun with it, of like, some of us, like, we want our ending. Some of us just never even got never got a chance to play Mon Cher or whatever. And like the over the top Cajun accent that Deadpool's constantly being like, "Who was your dialect coach? The Minions?"
Which is also a massive dig at what's his name?
Taylor Kitsch,
who played Gambit in Wolverine Origins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, I loved that, and I loved like that he's in there fully in the like X-Men, animated costume and stuff. Like the one thing I think they didn't go full tilt on was like, the contact lenses kind of thing. But I like ultimately I was fine with it because it was, you still get to see Channing Tatum's like eyes and emoting and whatnot. So, but yeah, him playing with the cards and like all of the Deadpool jokes about it. Oh, great! Like we got close up magic, yay! Yeah, so many fun beats in that sequence. And yeah, just such a wild pull to be like, hey, this is for such a niche part of this audience that like follows the trades and follows like movie news and knew that this was a thing that was supposed to happen. Like this is for the diehard nerds, not for the Marvel universe that brought so many of those movies up over $1 billion. So many of the like casual audience that is coming and seeing this is probably just like, wait, what was going on? Why was Channing Tatum in this? Like, what? I couldn't tell what they was even saying because of the dialect, so I couldn't even hear the jokes they were making. So why was he there? And so it's definitely one of those that I imagine a lot of people are like Googling like Channing Tatum Deadpool question mark. But yeah, for those in the know, it was such a fun like reveal.
That was great, but also like there's a moment where he says something and Deadpool's, I don't know what he was saying. Go ahead and pan up.
Yeah, in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's saying something in the back seat, and he's like, I don't know what he's saying. Pan up to Blade. And the camera, just pans up.
There's only ever going to be one Blade.
Yeah. That was another great, like, Blade line, being a dig at the, like, stuck in development hell Mahershala Ali Blade, which got no mention in this weekend's SDCC, San Diego Comic-Con stuff. So definitely is like a...
Well, they don't have a director for it
Yeah,
anymore,
exactly.
So.
I mean, they didn't have a director for the next couple Avengers movies, but they found one and came out and announced some stuff on that. So, so yeah, the fact that like we got that very pointed like line at the expense of so much of the other Marvel stuff, and like it was, I think, they obviously took a bunch of shit and let Deadpool kind of shit on a lot of MCU stuff. Hey, welcome to the MCU. Sorry, you're coming in at a low time.
We haven't had it, like, it's not been like, was it like the last few haven't been so great?
Yeah. Yeah, just a lot of fun with that. One of the other cameos I want to shout out, of course, one of the first ones we get. The first one we get is Jon Favreau's Happy Hogan, which is like, all right, this is a weird little sequence. But then we get I guess two. We get the wonderful montage of Wolverines, which end caps with the Cavalrine, as they called it, with the Henry Cavill version of Wolverine being just such a wonderful thing. But even all of the like Hugh Jackman versions that we get in the lead up to that of
comic book accurate
height Wolverine and the Age of Apocalypse Wolverine and Patch. And then some like even like I think one is supposed to be Old Man Logan. One is just like
the shotgun with the shotgunning him on the porch. That's Old Man Logan, like from the comic book proper.
And then we get one that is Logan kind of being crucified on a giant X, which is a very like specific comic book cover.
Yeah.
That is probably the most deep cutty of them all. We get the like original brown and black kind of design of him fighting Hulk, including like the snicked with like the Hulk reflection, which is another comic book cover.
Yep.
And then well, obviously this one has the very iconic yellow and blue outfit. But yeah, the like the big burly one that we see, and then like as we're cutting back and forth, that we see like working on a motorcycle or whatever, he turns his head and it's Henry Cavill as Wolverine.
The Cavalrine.
Yeah. We're gonna treat you so much better than those shit fucks down the road or whatever he says.
Yeah.
But yeah, just a wonderful like punch, not only at like the obviously the DC stuff, but specifically the DC stuff of like, all right, they brought him back, and he's gonna be, he comes back and he does the Black Adam end tease, and he like leaves The Witcher to go and do more Superman stuff, and then immediately James Gunn comes in. It's like, he's not our Superman anymore. It's like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Like, nobody's problem was with Henry Cavill. Like,
Henry
everybody
Cavill
loved Henry Cavill.
Henry Cavill was never the problem.
Yeah, Henry Cavill was like, he's one of those, much like Christopher Reeves, who was like, he had such a reverence for the character, and one of my favorite interviews of him is talking about how like he felt he needed to be a better man to live up to the ideals of Superman.
Yeah.
After getting cast as the role, and I think he does. I think he's great. So yeah,
and the only reason he left The Witcher is because the people running The Witcher wanted to deviate from the source material so much that he's like, I won't do it, and so they said, fine, don't do it. Like, that's the whole thing. Like, that's the whole, like, Henry Cavill is one of those guys who he really gets it, and like is a bit of a stick in the mud when it comes to like, you know, authenticity for him. Yes, but I think that's something you want out of it. Like, there's a reason why he's the executive producer of the new Warhammer thing they have going on over at Prime. Like, like the dude gets it. He's a part of it, and like you said, he was so impacted by the fact that he was cast as Superman, he decided to be a better person because of it. Like,
he strikes me as somebody who would be a Ryan Reynolds type of like, I want to do right by this character. And so yeah, I think that's what we'll see with the Warhammer stuff. I remember seeing a while back like this image of him like reading a script that people kind of like decoded, and it seemed to be like a Mass Effect script. So if he ends up being like Shepard in a Mass Effect series or movie or something like that,
that'd be so cool.
I feel like he would absolutely kind of try and do right by that.
Yeah, he's the kind of person that's like, oh, he's part of your project. Okay, we trust you.
Yeah.
Like, he has that level of authenticity and also across the spectrum, from like the hardcore gatekeepy people to the super casual people. Everyone loves Henry Cavill. Mm-hmm. So saying he's not our Superman, cool, James Gunn, like, great way, like right off, like starting on the wrong foot right off there. But anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, so he's such a fun little pop in here. It's very much like that's a bummer, because like it'd be fun to have him as like a real Wolverine moving forward, but I imagine this is going to be like a John Krasinski one-off kind of thing.
Yeah, I think this is the closest we'll get to him. And honestly, it was probably known that, and he was probably had a great time with it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He probably came in for a very fun day of getting into some hair and makeup and one day of shooting. So yeah, we get that whole fun sequence, and then we get Deadpool and Wolverine sent off to the Void, where they meet Chris Evans, not as Captain America, but as the Human Torch.
Yep.
In a fun bait and switch reveal. That would like, oh, he's gonna say it. Avengers, yeah, flame on. Just being like, oh, fuck.
Dude, that totally caught me off guard so badly. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Because before it's like, oh, Chris Evans won't ever come back, but we also thought that about Hugh Jackman Wolverine.
As soon as like Chris Evans popped in there, I was like, oh, this is great, because he has, again, going back to Fall Guy, like he has such a fun, relationship and friendship with Ryan Reynolds. He's always game for this kind of stuff. So yeah, it's like very fun. He's gonna come in. He's gonna be a version of Cap in the Void, immediately get killed off probably or something like that, and be done. And the fact that he was like even more game to come in and be Johnny Storm. And go back to, again, like, let's honor the Fox movies that came before, in a very just fun tongue-in-cheek way. Loved that little bit. Loved that he basically comes in and is like the exposition machine for a little bit, and then yeah, they basically like off him real quick.
Yep.
And with the fun meta joke of like, do you have any idea how much of the budget he was eating up? Absolutely great.
Also, his like callbacks to be like Johnny who? What? No, we don't know him.
Yeah.
Oh, it's exactly what Johnny would have wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. Seems like he would have been a good guy. But yeah, even that, like we get so many fun little. Obviously, we get Laura X-23 coming back from Logan. Oh, like shout out to just all of the like, hey, like, we're Logan happened. We're not going to dig up the corpse of Logan, except we're actually actively going to dig up the corpse of Logan and turn it into an opening fight sequence. It's a lot of fun. We'll talk about some fight stuff later, but yeah, so many fun little cameos there, as well as like I really liked the flurry of like henchman cameos that we get. We get the Sabretooth, we get Toad, we get Pyro, all from like the original X-Men films. We get Lady Deathstroke. Is it Lady Deathstroke? Lady
Deathstrike. Lady Deathstrike.
Yeah. We get different actor, but we get like Juggernaut. We get Blob. We get some of the Easter eggy stuff I saw is like we get the Russian who was like a henchman originally played by Kevin Nash in one of the Punishers, like either the Dolphin or the Thomas Jane Punisher.
Yeah.
Like he's there in like red and white striped shirt. And so there were like cameos even from some of those other properties in the fights there. We got like cameos of the Fantastic car and Red Skull's car and the ice cream truck from Moon Knight. There's like just fun little things out there in the void. So yeah, lots of fun, silly things there, little Easter eggy things. I like Psylocke is there, but again, not played by Olivia Munn. But like a lot of the henchmen that like the team fights off with at Cassandra Nova's camp are like other characters from past. There's like a Deadshot, or not a Deadshot, a Bullseye there. Not Colin Farrell, but another
Bullseye,
a variant of Bullseye kind of thing. So yeah, shout out to all of those little like blink and you'll miss it Easter eggy things, but still like celebrating what came before. We get so this is one thing I mentioned to you, Rob McElhenney from It's Always Sunny, as well as like Ryan Reynolds' Wrexham partner, is credited in the film as TVA soldier, and it looks like his stuff actually was cut out of the film. Because in trailers and stuff, and in like behind the scenes stuff, when Deadpool and Wolverine and Human Torch are all being like taken to Cassandra's camp, there's like another cage that seemingly has a TVA agent in it.
Oh, is that supposed to be him?
And that's supposed to be him, and he basically gets like decimated or seemingly decimated or destroyed before Human Torch does, or maybe the Human Torch stuff wasn't originally in there, and he was going to be kind of the like example of how big of a threat she is or something. And then like I could fully see that having been like, oh, the TVA agent is the exposition dump to explain who Cassandra is, and you're in the void now and all this stuff. And it was Rob McElhenney. But yeah, like obviously that doesn't happen, and we get there and it's just that little sequence. So fun little like either intentional or unintentional dig at Rob McElhenney from Ryan Reynolds there in terms of like, hey, Wrexham buddy, let's yeah, come on, sure, I'll give you a cameo in the Marvel universe,
and then I'll cut it.
Yep, exactly, and then we'll scrap it for you. But we also get some fun cameos in voice form with the Deadpool core. We of course get Blake Lively as Lady Deadpool, who's much rumored. Basically, the rumors were all, it's either going to be Blake Lively or it's going to be Taylor Swift for Lady Deadpool, and it was Blake Lively. Kid Deadpool and Baby Pool are also their kids, so shout out to that. Ryan Reynolds is Cowboy Pool.
Matthew McConaughey is Cowboy Pool.
Yeah, sorry, Matthew McConaughey. Matthew McConaughey is Cowboy Pool. Nathan Fillion is Headpool. Did not catch that, but
for people who don't know, Headpool is not a sexual thing. It's the zombie Deadpool.
Yeah.
From the
floating flying head.
Yeah.
Pool. I assume if you're listening to this, you've seen the movie.
Hopefully.
But yes. So yeah, fun little bits there. And also shout out just to the fact that there was like a Deadpool wearing like the Welsh flag, which is, I believe, where Wrexham's team is. So it was basically like supposed to be a Wrexham pool kind of thing. So yeah, shout out to all that fun stuff, all those fun cameos. Trying to think if there is anything else to shout out here. I don't think so. Are there any cameos that you can think of that I'm overlooking or missing?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Yeah.
I think this would also be a good point to tie into like what I think both of our bigger gripes of the film is. Unless you want to keep going on cameos,
No.
sorry.
No, it's fine.
Transitioning over to like, oh, hey, all those cameos, they were awesome and great, right? It's like, yeah, they were. This is also like a structural issue with the film is it largely eschews the core Deadpool cast from the previous two films.
Yeah. Like we basically get like a party scene with the original cast, and like some of them very noticeably absent. Obviously, T.J. Miller not coming back because he's pretty much been like canceled from these things. But the fact that Domino and Cable aren't there, or even
Mentioned.
Cable gets a mention. Domino doesn't get a mention, and I'm thinking of the kid, Fire Fist. I forget who the kid's name, but the fact that like basically the family that Deadpool 2 spends the whole time building isn't really there, and like the fact that they break up Deadpool and Vanessa off screen feels really cheap and like unsatisfying. And so it ends up being like, oh, Deadpool's best friend, which they use as basically like a payoff for a sequence at the end of the film, is Peter. Like, and that's his guy now. Yeah, the other like Wolverine and Negasonic Teenage, whatever, and Yukio, like they show up. Shatterstar also there, but like no explanation as to why. Or why he is one of like Deadpool's like favorite people. So like all of that feels very like shoved in just to like say, hey, yeah, no, this is still a Deadpool movie, and these are still, but like, yeah, it feels very unsatisfying compared to everything else, since it's basically like, oh, they pop up for one scene at the beginning, then we go and spend the whole movie in the void, and then they're back at the end of the movie for another like yay, we did it scene. And yeah, very very underwhelming, I think, in that, as I said, kind of in the spoiler free stuff. I think it suffers because of that. I think they and I don't even necessarily blame the cameos on that aspect of it. It's much more they made this a Deadpool and Wolverine movie. So Hugh Jackman comes in, and much more so than like Cable, very much like we talked about in our Deadpool 2 That D Plus show, like Cable doesn't feel like he comes in and like takes the spotlight away from the other characters of the Deadpool story, whereas Wolverine very much does.
I will say the reason I wanted to kind of do a compare and contrast is because, not to say like the cameos took away from the core cast, but rather we have these amazing, awesome cameos, but we also are now seeing like on the flip side of that is we're feeling a lack of impact from the cast from the other two movies. Mm-hmm. Not to blame anybody for anything. It's just how you balance things out. Like you said, Wolverine takes up a lot more screen time than Cable did.
Yeah.
And it is Wolverine. It is Deadpool and Wolverine the movie. This is not necessarily quote unquote Deadpool 3. It's Deadpool and Wolverine. So it's their very very much their two buddy cop kind of story that they're telling, which it turns out eschewed the original cast a bit. So it's unfortunate, but it is like the story they wanted to tell. I do not. I don't see the cameos being the reason why either.
Yeah, no, I think like all the cameos are just like, well, they would have put somebody else in there. It's not like suddenly one of the Deadpool characters was going to pop up there in the void and do any of this other stuff. So, if any, like the one cameo that felt needless to me was the Happy Hogan stuff. like the Wade interview, like I want to be an Avenger and here's why, like that sequence went on A, longer than I needed it to, and B, just didn't feel like it felt like it does weird stuff with even like the timeline and dimension hopping that
Yeah.
they kind of establish or really explore later in the movie. It's like, okay, well he comes to the quote unquote Marvel 616 universe, which is theoretically where all these movies are all the MCU is happening. A couple months before the events of Infinity War and stuff. So, yeah, he and like the one line in there that it was like that's a funny little bit was the like, yeah, he doesn't really do this anymore. Cameos, um, uh, basically being like, yeah, this would have been an RDJ sequence if you could get RDJ for this, but instead, like, there's an element of, okay, well, I appreciate that. John Favreau was very much like also excuse me, also there for the beginning of the MCU, very much directing the first and second Iron Man movies,
Yeah.
in addition to his on-screen role as Happy Hogan. And so it like, if anything, I'll give it a little bit more of a pass because it's kind of that, like, him interviewing to join the MCU with the guy who kicked off the MCU from a directorial standpoint. But it still is like a weird sequence that just felt like it was hitting a lot of the same like happy jokes that we've already gotten in other movies, either the Spider-Man movies or the Iron Man movies, that I feel like this didn't really add anything new on that front. So that sequence just is one of those I was like, this could have been cut.
Yeah.
And it like it feels like an insert almost to like set up, well, here's why Wade's doing any of this, because he feels the need that he needs to, sacrifice himself, or he needs to do stuff for others. And it's like, I feel like we already learned that from Wade in the past one with the whole like, I'm doing this for my family, I'm building a family, I'm going to try and be better for my family kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel like part of the issue with that also is, like, I understand why they did it, to give like a tangible goal that Wade failed at getting, and that sent him into a depression, which caused him to kind of like emotionally remove himself from the people that mattered in his life. That leads him to his current situation. All that being said, like, it feels like it's a bit of a cop out to the progress that was made in the first two films. And it doesn't make a lot of sense in that regard. Like, I understand why you tangibly wanted to do that, but to have him do something else and have it fail, maybe, like, it's tough to say one way or the other how you accomplish this, kicking off it with this kind of like emotional catapult. But I don't know how you do it otherwise. But I do feel like it could have been different in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Because it also doesn't make sense how he crossed realities without,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is like he had the time thing from Cable, so yeah, he can jump into times. But if we're saying that only lets him jump, to forward and backward in time in his own thing, and he can't jump to other universes, and only the TVA can help him do that, or later when he gets a sling ring that has like a time stone and a reality stone attached to it, okay, sure, he can, or I guess he doesn't get that. Cassandra uses that sling ring. But yeah, it just kind of further muddies up things of it. And then there's also like other multiversal setup stuff where it's like, okay, well, it felt like Logan was really in its own timeline and not trying to be part of the same universe as the rest of the X-Men, but this is saying it is. What? Because this is like that very specifically, and Logan says it's happening in 2029. And so it's like, well, where are we at in this timeline? If that version of Logan is and has been dead for so long, like,
yeah, it doesn't really work.
Weird wonky timeline stuff. That's like whatever, like not the end of the world, but yeah, it just it when they decided to delve into that, it kind of like complicated things.
Well, for me, actually, now that I think about it, they mentioned that the anchor person died. And so it's deteriorating, and they're just going to blow up the universe anyway. Even though it wouldn't deteriorate itself until, for who knows, like could be 10, 20, 200 years. They mentioned
thousands of years. Yeah.
Yeah. So they mentioned that. So to me, that is in 2029, your anchor person dies. And so he uses the TVA device to go to 2029, I guess. But then why wouldn't you go earlier in the timeline or anything? Yeah, it falls apart.
Yeah.
I was like, maybe it does work, and I was talking it out just now, and it's like, actually, now it falls apart.
But it's all like it's also like, I mean, James Mangold and Hugh Jackman at the time very much said like, this isn't the same Wolverine that like we've been seeing since 2000 in Logan. Like it was a different version of Logan. So this is effectively the third different version of Logan that he's gotten to kind of play as.
Yeah. Well, they also didn't want to make like a definitive end to that era's Logan either. Like it makes sense. Like, and it's a bit of a retcon maybe, but honestly, it's a Deadpool movie. Who cares?
Yeah, it's certainly like not like, I'm much more bothered by the fact of like the sidelining of a lot of like the earlier cast and stuff like that than I am about like timey-wimey, you know, I guess it's just the fact that they're self-inflicted wounds that didn't need to be there.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the end of the day, I don't care that much about it. And speaking of that Logan thing, I want to segue into fights, because we get that fun first opening sequence of the meta commentary of like Ryan Reynolds basically saying like, okay, so we're doing this, you know what movie you're coming to see, and no, we're not gonna dig up, you know, we're not gonna desecrate Logan, except like he's literally desecrating Logan. Like I guess it's something to the effect of like, and people asked, are we gonna desecrate the Logan? Yes, that's exactly what we're gonna do. And he like we jump cut to the like end of Logan gravesite with Deadpool just digging up the body and being like, because that's not how regenerative stuff works. There's no way he's actually dead. He healed. So blah 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 blah. And then like ding.
Clang. Yeah.
God damn it. Fuck. And just like all of the obscenities cutting to adamantium skeleton Logan on a bench with
or behind a log
on the tree. Yeah, on the log on the tree that he died on with Wade. Just so much fun there. Leading into like him using Logan's corpse to just wreck shop on a whole bunch of TVA people. A lot of fun mixed with bye. Great fun little choreography sequence. This I felt was like the weakest of the introductions in terms of like the fun little like,
oh yeah, absolutely, yeah,
titles and stuff like that, but it was still fun.
Yes,
in the vein of like as like they're swinging the Wolverine skull, Hugh Jackman's name comes on the skull kind of thing. Yeah,
I think it was still extremely creative, but I do think I agree with you. It is not the best one. I will say also, this is a great moment for me to start to chime in here saying, I really appreciate a lot of Sean Levy's work, like directing this movie. I will say out of all the action, like if you want to rank quality of action by director, Tim Miller, who did Deadpool 1, David Leitch, who did Deadpool 2, and now Sean Levy, who's done Deadpool and Wolverine. I think Sean Levy is the least skilled at it. I will say, like, the one-on-one fight scenes, fantastically done. But overall, larger fight scenes sometimes lost coherency throughout it. I think the TVA one it has a bit of it, little bit of it, but I think it's very much exampled when there's way too many like actual characters doing things. Towards the end.
That's the Void fight that has like all the cameos fighting at Cassandra's base is the weakest of the bunch.
Absolutely.
But I would say like this fight works in large part because it's slow-mo and they're playing it for the comedy of the fight. Whereas like the fight in Cassandra Nova's place is just trying to be like an action fight and like, hey, let's see, like, I think part of it is like Elektra and Blade's fight stuff isn't that fun or dynamic. So like when you get like, or it's, well, Elektra, Blade, and X-23 Laura are all Blade people. They're all like,
melee.
They're all melee slashers. So like you have three of the same kind of flavor, plus Gambit.
So Gambit in those scenes shines.
Yeah, Gambit gets a little bit of a standout sequence in that, whereas like
Laura versus Juggernaut also very great.
Yeah.
The one-on-one sequences in that larger fight were really stellar.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Sean Levy as a director when it comes to action is like still like on par with the other two. Mm-hmm. But the larger ensemble fight scenes not nearly as good.
Yeah.
And I feel like it is a skill set. Action is a multivariable skill set to have as a director. And it's easy for us to like armchair quarterback this. Like It's super easy for us to kind of be like, well, he's not nearly as good as like two of the best action directors out there. But overall, I feel like, those larger fight scenes not nearly as good. And I feel like some of this beginning TVA fight has that, but overall, still stellar action throughout, especially the creativity in the Wolverine Deadpool fight scenes.
Yeah, we've got this fight scene that is like slow-mo, just ripping the adamantium skeleton apart bit by bit and using all these bones to just slice or slash or just jab through. But then we do get, funny bits of, okay, he's got the claws now, and he stabs somebody with a claw, gets it stuck in the guy's butt, and then he stabs another guy in the crotch, and he's stuck. He's kind of like doing this whole thing with them, and oh no, like this, and like everybody's screaming in pain.
Yeah,
I love the bit like he stabs himself with the claws, and kind of like we get that little bit of humor.
It's showcasing, hey, it's actually really hard to fight with claws.
Sure, yeah, it's very much this is where Sean Levy is good at the comedy in the fights.
Yeah.
Especially when we get like the one-shot sequence in the Deadpool, slash down kind of at the end of the
Deadpool
film.
core fight, yeah.
Yeah. And we do get a lot of great comedy in the one-on-one initial void fight between Deadpool and Wolverine of baby knife and stabbing him and Wolverine getting on him, and then Deadpool pulling out the guns, just shooting him in the kidneys, kind of thing, and a bunch of great fun action because you're doing fights between two effectively immortal kind of healing creatures that are very adeptly matched with one another. So we get that great sequence. We get the great fight in the car. As well, where they just destroy the hell out of that Honda Odyssey or whatever it is, and so I think the comedy of the sequences is a lot of fun, but I think especially the fight with so many of these characters that we're never going to get to see these characters again, kind of thing, is underwhelming and didn't know what it needed to be. And I think part of that, I think, was because it was just the most straightforward fight. It's not trying to be a lot of funny stuff in that fight. We get funny little lines of Blade saying his some motherfuckers always trying to be ice skate uphill or whatever. Mm-hmm. As a great little pop off. But that is very much more a traditional fight sequence because Deadpool's not in there trying to, crack jokes. It's the, we talked about this back when we talked about Guardians of the Galaxy 3, because Rocket Raccoon is taken out of so much of that movie, you lose a lot of the rocket-based humor that usually comes along with Guardians of the Galaxy stuff. And so I feel this is a fight where Deadpool's very much going straight to Cassandra Nova, so he's not cracking jokes, he's not doing a whole bunch of funny stuff in this. So this is really just a fight with cameo people, and it suffers, I think, comparatively to the other ones. But then we get to the final fight that is the side shot, oneer of we get the great fun reveal of Wolverine pulling the cowl up and getting the cowl for the in live action.
I don't care what the haters say, I loved it.
I loved the moment. There were moments as he continued to wear the cowl throughout the movie where he's having a conversation and I'm it looks like the cowl has a lazy eye or something like that. It didn't look right because it's just the white eye. And I can tell where the eye should be pointing to try and like line up with Deadpool in this shot, and that's not where the cowl's eye is lining up with. And so it was distracting. It was great for the pop and great for the action and stuff, but then it became a little distracting in some of the like, no, I'm gonna make the sacrifice scenes kind of thing. And
I dug it. I loved it anyway.
I feel like this would be a little bit more impactful if I could see Hugh Jackman's very emotive eyes and facial reactions to this sequence, but
didn't need them.
Right.
Loved it anyway. No, I honestly think it could have been better if it had been like instead of like a full white eye like Deadpool has on his. I think it would have been better if it had been like a lens or some sort of like thing that you could kind of like see through a little bit.
Sure.
Or just to have it be like the whole, like Batman it instead of just having like the gaping hole.
Yeah. But yeah, still a great sequence, and then leading into a great fun fight. Prefaced with the like just absolute demolishing of Nice Pool.
When does your regenerative healing kick in?
Regenerative healing?
Oh, blood.
We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. Like, as soon as he starts saying like we're gonna do this, I look down because I was like, his head's about to explode or something like that. And sure enough, I hear it and I look up. I'm like, yep, his head's gone. So I didn't see the actual moment, but it was very much a. Yep,
it was fantastic. It was great. And it turns out it's like you just wanted his dog and his gold-plated Desert Eagle pistolas.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that's very much set up from their first meeting in the void.
He's like, I want what you have.
You can have Mary Poppins over my dead body. That's where that like it's almost like Wade should have winked to the camera at that point, or like turned to the camera and been like, well, there's your third act spoiler, or something like that. But
although you do get Nice Pool having the breaking the fourth wall moment, I also can break the fourth wall.
The
proposal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, with the do you want original recipe or do you want Van Milder over here? Yeah. Great banter. Even that though, I would say like it's a little too much, especially, like this was a thing we had with the Acolyte recently. It's a little bit too much Ryan Reynolds talking to Ryan Reynolds.
For sure, yeah.
And I'm even looking it up, and they did exactly what Moon Knight did. Of like, it was Ryan Reynolds talking with Gordon Reynolds, who I presume is Ryan Reynolds' brother, much like Oscar Isaac was talking with his brother.
Yeah.
And then they just because I was like, why is his face so CGI'd on this thing? Like, why am I just not looking at like Ryan Reynolds? Like, why am I looking at a CG Ryan Reynolds face in these sequences when like one of them is in a mask, and you could very clearly have the one in the mask be the fake double.
That's what I thought would have been like, it, right? I thought that would have been it.
Yeah, but nope. They did not have Ryan Reynolds like be Nice Pool on set, seemingly. So, just it was a weird like, this is taking me out of these moments a little bit, but whatever. They were fun. And then we get all those fun little Deadpool like pop-offs and the whole fight there. And shout out to the little Easter eggy things of Liefeld's like only feet, I think, or something like that, being an homage to the creator. We talked about this, I think, in the Deadpool 2 that D Plus show. But yeah, was it Rob Liefeld, who famously bad at drawing hands and feet, and has been like a recurring gag in the Deadpool films.
Which, I appreciate he did an interview where he's like, I just take that on.
He loves it.
He's like, I love it. He goes, it's great that I'm remembered.
Yep.
He has the joy of both being the creator of Deadpool and also and it's not just the tiny feet, by the way. Anybody who's ever wondered like why the 90s superheroes all have massive bandoliers, Rob Liefeld.
Sure.
Rob
He's also
Liefeld.
the one that does like wild proportions, and is he the one that has like, that's like Captain America is the one that has like the ginormous chest?
Yes.
Yeah.
A ginormous chest and up like the proportions of pecs and I almost said abs, but pecs, like big pecs, tiny abs, massive thighs and calves, and then tiny feet.
Yeah.
Like that's that is his influence.
The
as an
other,
artist.
the other meta joke that's happening in that like that Liefeld's only feet is that it's like an orthopedics, footwear shop or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's basically like, yeah, if you have the proportions that Liefeld has given you, you're going to need some kind of orthopedic footwear to like help walk upright.
The man defined like the edgy action superhero genre by its style.
Yeah.
And so like I give massive props to him because he created a lot of these, like he's also the creator of Cable, like all these big that's kind of the great thing about Cable and Deadpool is they're both Liefeld creations.
Yep.
Cable famously, Deadpool's first appearance, cut Deadpool into pieces and put him in a box and sent him to Deadpool's employer. And then when they decided to bring Deadpool back, they're like, oh, he has like Wolverine regenerative abilities. And this is before, this is ironing out his history. Like Deadpool's origin is super weird and fun.
Sure.
And it's great. So
Fun little Easter eggy thing there. Also on the bus is a big ad for Stan Lee's Steamers, as a nod to Stan Lee, of course. And yeah, just they just destroy all these Deadpools, but then of course all the Deadpools they all have regenerative abilities and come back. But then we get the payoff of like Peter Pool coming up in the OG Deadpool leather suit from like the first couple movies, along with his nipple piercings and going down to his crotch that we got at the party a little bit. And everybody being like, oh, we love Peter. Yeah, we all have a Peter. Okay, so that's how we get out of them needing to do that fight more or something like that.
Shout out to that also being like a nod to Bob from Hydra is a character that recurs in Deadpool.
Yep.
Who essentially that's who Peter is.
Mm-hmm. Bob was in the first Deadpool movie.
Yeah.
But Bob from Hydra I don't think he's from Hydra, but yeah, Bob is one of the henchmen that the Deadpool lets live in the first movie.
Yep, that's a nod to Hydra Bob from the comic book. And so in the second film, Peter showing up and being like, "Oh, I don't really have any abilities or anything." That's very much a classic like Hydra Bob joke from the comics. Is they're like, "You're Deadpool's sidekick. What are your superpowers?" And he goes, "I don't have any." He's a failed Hydra agent, like foot soldier, and so like that's his whole shtick. Is that, and so Peter being like a Hydra Bob-esque character helps that out and makes this scene work for me as a Deadpool fan. I get other people might be like, that's a dumb way to end the fight. It's like, welcome to a Deadpool movie. Fuck off.
Yeah. And then we get the ending of Deadpool.
Oh, by the way, shout out to their introduction to Madonna's
Like a Prayer.
Like a Prayer. I mentioned to you off before, since we've seen it now, that I found out that Madonna owns her masters. Mm-hmm. And so
famously does not let Like a Prayer be licensed out.
Yes, because it's a very close personal song for her and everything. And so Ryan Reynolds went and met with Madonna and convinced her to let them use it.
Yeah. They showed her the sequence that they were looking and that they wanted it for, and basically made the personal plea to please give it to us. In the same way that they did that with like Celine Dion for the last film.
Yep, very much that same thing. It's like, oh, we need to convince somebody to let us do something they normally wouldn't do. Let's send Ryan Reynolds to convince them, and it works. Mm-hmm. Man's charming. Man's extremely charming. And they showed her the sequence, and they also showed her like, we really also want to use it as like a reprise for this scene. Mm-hmm. And it was the scene of when they saved the multiverse, and it's like that like slow down version of it. Yeah, and it's like
children's choir version of Like a Prayer, while they form the Guardians of the Galaxy-esque connection.
Yep. It would kill one of it turns out it would kill one of us, but it won't kill both of us.
Yeah.
Like totally on the nose, by the way. That's so lampshaded, that's so perfectly like pointed out earlier. It's like you could totally follow up with that, and then they do. And it's like cool.
Yeah. I'm trying to think other things to shout out.
Cassandra Nova.
I was gonna say,
fantastic.
we get like a couple. We have Cassandra Nova and we have Mr. Paradox as effectively our villains in this one, and I think they both they suffer from the same kind of stuff that so many Marvel things do. Of like they're not the focus of this thing.
Yeah.
But Cassandra's powers, very visually interesting to see explored with like the CG hands in the head kind of thing.
Shout out to the like detail they put though, because it's not just like, oh, we're gonna do it when like you just see the fingers come through. It's like you see the fingers, and if you look closely and notice this, you see like where her finger ends, the skin is stretched in that area. So they've made like they did such a great job of that. It's not just like her hand is out there, ooh, spooky or whatever, oh, like a ghost. It's like, no, it looks like she's put her fingers through the person's skin. Like incredible level of detail on that. Absolutely fantastic level of that. Also,
the like grotesque bit of like her dragging Mr. Paradox like down the subway stairs like with her hand through his head is like, oh, like this, like the fact that it's just awkward as fuck for them and not like, oh, like my head is about to explode because somebody's hand is moving around in it is like just such a fun like extra layer to it.
Yeah, it's like, ew, it's painful and it's awkward as hell.
Yeah.
I love the way she does it. I love how good she is. Like, shout out to the actress who plays her, by the way. She's fantastic.
They.
Emma
Curran, yeah.
Emma Curran. They are fantastic. Absolutely fantastic job with it. Love it. For people who don't know, Cassandra Nova is from the comics is Dr. Xavier's sister.
Yeah.
How she came up
from the womb. I mean, they say it in the
movie. But for people out there, if you saw it and you're like, well, where is it from? It's like, no, that's from the comic books. Like, it's a legit character. And when I saw her in the trailer, one of the trailers, I was like, oh shoot, this is interesting because you now have somebody who is almost on the level of Dr. Xavier being your antagonist. And here we kind of see the kind of like role that they are. Cassandra Nova's character is a she, so I'm going to refer to her as a she here.
Yeah, that's fine.
I want to be clear, I'm not misgendering the actress or the actor in this case. The Cassandra, her role in the kind of void cycle, like she's meant to be kind of a sort of pseudo ruler of this area and basically feed people to Alioth. And that's like her role. It turns out.
You mean Alioth from Loki season 1, episode 5? Love that. Love
so
that
good.
Bit of Alioth.
So good. Oh my gosh, yeah. The meta. By the way, the meta context and like references to MCU films, fantastic. Love getting those added in here. It's so good.
Yeah, and it like also honors like the MCU TV stuff more than anything else they've done, really.
To the point where they're like when they bring up like, well, there's been some changes to the TVA.
We used to just be able to prune this, but apparently we don't do that anymore. Yeah.
And it's like, wait a minute, you guys are off grid. And it's like, oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
They perfectly are able to be like, succinctly do it in a way, but also gives like, well, yeah, I'm going to do this and I'm going to prove my point that pruning things and doing it this way is what's right.
Yeah.
Like, gives motivation to your villain. Why is your villain different from all the others? You nail it perfectly. These are a bunch of people who don't like the new TVA.
Yeah.
And then you bring in an actress from Loki, the TV show, into a big movie in an important role.
Yep. I mentioned it to you before we started recording that I watched like New Rock Stars, like big hour-plus long like breakdown of Easter eggs and stuff. And they posited that like some of those lines seem to be like maybe like reshoots or something like that of like there's kind of inserts in that scene. So it might be theoretically like this script and the script for Loki season 2 were probably being developed at the same time. So they might have had like an idea to use the TVA based off of season 1 of Loki. And then when they like were putting stuff together and you could have just the TVA out there pruning things. And fair. Then like Loki season 2 is like, hey, we're not doing that anymore. Loki is now the, god of stories holding this all together. So they might have been like, well, yeah, now we're not just the TVA doing this. We're, an off the grid subset of the TVA doing this.
Yeah.
And so we get those lines like we used to, be able to do this, but I don't really like the way we're doing things now.
And I think that adds a layer to Paradox's character too. I think that's to the benefit of Paradox's character is he's not just a bumbling executive person doing this job. It's
he's a very savvy middle manager
who's trying to move up to upper management. And he sees this as his lane. It's so well done. Also, perfect casting. Dude from Succession, amazing, so good.
Do you watch? Have you watched Succession?
I try to. It brings up deep personal family trauma for me, so I didn't finish it.
Okay.
Because there's a scene in one of the episodes that is like a dinner scene, and it brought back horribly traumatic family memories. Like my family now, awesome. I love them. We're great. We're wonderful. To a point, we've all separately been to therapy. Like we are a healthy, good, functioning family now. We did not used to be. Mm-hmm. Well, I literally had dinner earlier tonight with almost all of my siblings and my parents tonight, and it was wonderful. We had a great time. But growing up, things were very different as far as like the vibe. And so like Succession brings that out, and it is traumatizing to me personally. It's why I can't watch The Bear, because The Bear brings back like a lot of bad traumatic memories I have of working in food service.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't think, like, I know he's from Succession, but since I haven't watched Succession, I don't have, like, that as a touch point. So I don't think I actually have seen him in anything. Matthew McFadden.
Yeah, I've watched clips of him stuff on YouTube and TikTok and stuff because they show up, and he's fantastic in it. Like, I love his role. He's very much like a yuppie, like, upper executive who is, like, marrying into the kind of, like, main family. At the beginning, he's dating and then is engaged to the daughter of like the media magnate that is
Brian Cox's character.
Yeah, Brian Cox's character.
Yeah. But yeah, he's a lot of fun. And Emma Corrin, they're a lot of fun as Cassandra Nova. But they just suffer from the thing that so many other Marvel things do, where they come in like. Not Tom. He's Tom on Succession. Mr. Paradox in particular, like he comes in and is much like the Johnny Storm bit we get in a little like a scene or two later. But he comes in and he is exposition for like here's where the movie's going, and here's basically the plot.
Oh, and here's why the Wolverine you bring us sucks.
And then and then especially at the end of like, all right. There's antimatter and there's matter and these two things, and you can't, like the extended sequence of exposition, like third act exposition that he gives to Deadpool and Wolverine to basically like get us out of the third act and basically like untie the what's the knot that what's the
Gordian knot?
Is it the Gordian knot? I'm thinking specifically the knot that Game of Thrones writer has
Myronese knot into. Is what
the Myronese knot. Yeah, like they untangle the Myronese knot-esque thing of like, all right, we need to wrap up, so here's what you got to do, and it's just very spelled out. Like there are a couple of moments there where like it's so on the nose that I'm surprised we didn't get a lazy writing. Throw in line or something like that, like we did in Deadpool 2. Like there were a couple of those moments where it felt like it needed some kind of joke as a button for the scene, and we don't get it, and it's just okay, that's what we got to do, so we're gonna go in there. Like the button that we get, I think, from him is all that happens. They save the day, blah blah blah. But everybody thinks they're dead, and so
he's like two of my men are down there.
The two of my men came in and they saved the world, and then like, and I am risen. Fuck.
By the way, Deadpool is Marvel Jesus line throughout all this. I'm Marvel Jesus, MJ for short. All of the Marvel Jesus references, fantastic.
Yeah, and
I am risen, and it's just fuck like so good. It's so goddamn good. The way that that's done, that scene is done perfectly. Also, shout out to the scene itself. First off, anybody who's like confused by like why did Deadpool do that anyway if Logan was going to do it, you have to understand Deadpool's such a narcissist.
Well, I mean, in this movie, they set up this idea that Deadpool needs to basically be self-sacrificing, so this is his chance to be self-sacrificing.
But it's very
in comics. He didn't have to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's going to do it.
Because like, how dare you try to steal this from me, Wolverine?
Yeah.
Like that reaction of like, you're taking away this opportunity for me to be self-sacrificing. Fuck you. Mm-hmm. Like that is very Deadpool-esque.
Yeah.
And then hits him in the head with the fire extinguisher, and gets him and locks him out and says, "I can't hear you. Bye bye." And then does like a very extended like, walking, like does all the jokes of like the rope pull and like the all of that is
He
fantastic.
didn't do the rope pull, but he does do like flies.
Oh, that's right. He does the
in.
flying, not the rope
He
pull.
does the like
The
walking down the
stairs.
stairs. He does like just the lean in and be, I think I don't want to die. He does the Spock moment,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah.
Yeah, put my hands up and he goes, or is it like this? Am I Jesus or am I Spock? Who's to say?
Yeah.
So good.
But yeah, then obviously we get Wolverine just bash his way in to also save the day.
And also has his like top of his uniform blown off so we could get some sweet,
during
sweet Hugh
during
Jack-
the like a prayer.
yeah, getting some sweet Hugh Jackman abs. And guess what? Deadpool and I were both looking at those abs.
Which,
holy shit!
Shout out to earlier in the film where they were like, yeah, he's keeping his shirts on for this one because he's really let himself go since the divorce. Referring to Hugh Jackman's actual
real
divorce from like less than a year ago is
Like,
brutal.
His divorce of his wife of like 25 years.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Like pre Fox X-Men stuff.
yeah, like literally the woman who has been by his side for the most of his life.
Yeah.
Who he married when he was a gym teacher in Australia.
It's definitely one of those, like, I feel like Ryan obviously got permission from
Absolutely.
Hugh and probably from Hugh's ex-wife as well to like make the joke, and I would like to think the fact that they like allowed the joke in here, that it's all amicable, and
from what the reports were said about his divorce, it was very much like we've come to a point where like we can know, like, we don't hate. It's very much with those moments of, oh, we're both mature enough to and like wise enough to know our marriage isn't working anymore, so we're divorcing because our marriage doesn't work. Our marriage hasn't been working for like 5 years, and now we hate each other to death.
Sure.
Like that is like.
But that might be the most brutal line in the film.
Oh, absolutely, I think so.
Like, especially
from a meta context,
from a meta context. But it's also like one of those, much like so many other jokes in this, if you don't know the thing that's actually being referenced there, you're probably fine. You probably just think it's you might just be thinking it's since the divorce from Fox or something like that. It's like, oh no, that's just a personal like dig at Hugh Jackman's personal relationship. Ouch. But yeah. So yeah, shout out to all of that fun stuff. Not all that fun stuff, but all of the fun jokes and cameos and pops and whatnot. One last performance I want to shout out that we didn't really touch on too much in the cameo section is Daphne Keane as X-23 / Laura,
Phenomenal.
who is supposed to be the Laura from Logan, not like a variation, not a variant kind of thing. So I loved her scenes with this Logan and her line about like, I got to grow up because of you, and a lot of kids did, and obviously this Logan's dealing with his own grief and trauma, but it was still like a nice epilogue beat for Logan, for that character to see, like, you know, who she has grown up into.
I love that line of, I'm the wrong person.
You always were.
You always were.
Until you weren't.
Like, yeah, Logan, like, Wolverine's not the person you think you need until you need them. And she nails that. The also shout out to the sunglasses when she puts them on, like, such a great nod. We just did Logan a couple weeks ago for that D+ show, so like a lot of that was hitting me. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, gosh, that's right. This is like, she recognizes this isn't her dad, but this is a guy who technically is her dad, not her dad. And he needs help. And so she helps him. And it shows like she's really, really grown. Like this woman that Logan saved, like it really, like the difference he made was worth it. And like the change he was able to put into the world was worth it.
Yeah. Similar to the divorce line, shout out to the like line back in the conversation with Elektra of like, oh, Daredevil didn't make it. Oh, I'm so sorry. It's all right.
Once again, like, brutal line if you understand like the tumultuous marriage that was Ben Affleck leaving Jennifer Lopez for Jennifer Garner, marrying Jennifer Garner,
having a falling out and divorce from Jennifer
Having
Garner,
multiple
and now
having
being
multiple
back
affairs
with Jennifer.
yeah.
Oh, I didn't know. I don't follow enough to know if affairs were actually in the mix. But,
Yeah.
like knowing that he's now back with Jennifer Lopez is like, oh, this is weird.
Yep. And so when she says he didn't make Daredevil didn't make it, I'm so sorry. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's very much. I think the saying that, I don't know if it was Jennifer Garner said it or somebody else said Matt Damon or Ben Affleck will never have a successful marriage until he divorces Matt Damon, is like a phrase about that. So like tumultuous marriage, very, very tumultuous marriage. And so that line is like very brutal.
All right. Yeah. Still fun meta stuff. Still fun Deadpool. But yeah, probably not because it's trying to do so many things. It suffers a little bit. Doesn't have the focus that Deadpool 1 and Deadpool 2 had. But still like a good time.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
showing how Deadpool can slot into the MCU moving forward.
And firmly establishes the X-Men universe as Marvel Universe 10003. 10005 as very much like, hey, it exists, this is its number, it's real.
Yep.
We know what it is, we know where mutants are in this now, that's the way it's gonna be.
Yep, if we need to have a Secret Wars incursion event that, has 616 and 10005 crashing together to create Battle World, that's what we've got to look forward to in 2027. As well as from San Diego Comic-Con, we got obviously the big news being Robert Downey Jr. back as Doctor Doom in Avengers Doomsday, which also makes me wonder if he's going to be appearing in the Fantastic Four, because they said the Fantastic Four is basically starting to shoot this weekend.
Yeah, I think that might be
week.
the case.
So yeah, it feels very Johnny Depp news breaking, right before Fantastic Beasts comes out, because hey, Johnny Depp is in the end of that movie, kind of thing.
Yeah. I found a very interesting note that somebody, like, theory that somebody had, is like, well, what if Iron Man in Iron Man 2 doesn't find the solution to his palladium issue, and so he has to stay in his suit longer and longer and longer until at some point maybe like Doctor Doom's whole thing about is like
That's a whole other thing, and that like
there's a lot going on with that.
Well, like the Doctor Doom thing, I'm like, how often? Like, admittedly, I never watched either of the either of the Fantastic Four movies, so I remember the actor from Nip Tuck being Doctor Doom in the first one, and just kind of being like, well, I mean,
it's a solid C- movie.
How
I would say
often?
Fantastic Four,
but like, how often do you see Doctor Doom not in the mask? Is really. So it's like, that's why Robert Downey Jr. is doing it. It's going to be his Pedro Pascal Mandalorian. Oh, he doesn't have to show up on set. It can be a body double, and he's just in a recording studio somewhere.
Quite literally, Doombots are a thing because of as a that's a Doctor Doom thing. I will also say Doctor Doom is also funny if Doctor Doom is like a technomancer, combines technology with magic to do his thing. So it's a very much very alternative look at a potential Tony Stark type figure.
Yeah, I think they're making obviously it's a very deliberate choice for it to be the tentpole Tony Stark actor is now this big new villain that they're using to replace Kang, since that all fell apart.
Who's somebody who the Marvel company has been able to rely on carrying this franchise for years.
Yeah.
Robert Downey Jr., bring him back.
Yeah. All of the movies have kind of taken a hit since he left. All right, what do we have to do to get Robert Downey Jr. back? Yeah, he don't want to play Iron Man anymore. That's fine. We agree. We feel he had a good send off in that
in
movie.
Iron Man. What if we did
in Endgame?
What do you mean you want to work with the Russo brothers again? Okay, we'll bring back the Russo brothers.
Yeah. I tweeted out. I was like, how fascinating it is, because his two movies that he's done since Endgame were Doolittle, which I think is very, very bad, but it was his pet project that he'd wanted to do for a long time. He finally made it happen, did it, whatever. And then he did Oppenheimer, his big Oscar baity thing to make up for Chaplin. He actually wins the Oscar this time. And so now he's got his Oscar, and now he's happy to go back to the MCU.
He's like, my pet project done? Great. My
My Oscar?
My Oscar?
Secured?
Great. My legacy as an actor? Untouched. What do I want to do now?
Let's go make some money again.
I see it more for him as because of how much money, the insane amounts of money he did make from playing Tony Stark. I see it more as like I really want to go back and play on the playground again with all my friends.
Yeah.
I really want to go back and do that. But like I said, I can't go back and be Iron Man. And they're like, well, what if he came back and was Doctor Doom?
Yeah.
And it's like, and also new mask, same, it was a new mask, same task.
Yep.
I'm like, what does that even mean?
Save the MCU, I guess.
I guess, yeah.
I think that's going to be one of those movie critic interviewers is going to be like, so what task were you referring to? And like, we'll eventually get the actual, answer. But yeah, obviously that's the big news. So we got that coming. Got him coming in Doomsday in 2026. Secret Wars in 2027, both from the Russo brothers. Yeah, I'm glad to have them back. I've loved their work since Community days. So
yeah, they're great. I don't think there's the only people I know who aren't happy with the Russo brothers coming back are people who I can only think of one person who I know is not happy, and he sucks. So
okay,
he's my friend who I antagonized with my tweet before we saw it.
Got it.
Love him dearly, but God, is he pretentious. Anyway, I love you.
Oh, yeah.
I doubt he was listening or watching.
That doesn't sound like somebody I know. Anyway. But yeah, as I said, there was no Blade news coming out of San Diego Comic-Con, so we didn't get anything there. That
was biting. That was also like a very biting, very visceral, oof.
Yeah. I did they did some, Brave New World stuff. They did Fantastic Four stuff. They had the new Fantastic car flying into Hall H, I guess. That was a cool little thing to see. But it was like, okay, well, this definitely feels like lackluster. And I hope those things are good, but I think I am kind of coming off of Deadpool and Wolverine of okay, this could be a potential, it's not like a reset point or anything like that, but it's okay, it's been very hit or miss in terms of, and we need a couple hits in a row before we feel like we're comfortably back in the MCU's doing good. And I don't know if Brave New World is going to do that for me, or Thunderbolts, or like Fantastic Four is one I'm interested in because they're doing it as a period piece, and it's
a period piece. It's a very cool cast who's doing it. I see that as a cool, fun project more than I'm looking at as being the next big MCU film.
Yeah, and it seems almost certain that they're going to be in yet another universe kind of thing, setting up more for Secret Wars stuff, especially if they're leaning into, okay, yep, this is the X-Men universe now, this is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We've seen a little bit of other university things in Multiverse of Madness and whatnot, but
this is, I think, what I think is happening is they're just being hey, you know what the general public knows what a multiverse is now.
Yeah,
we don't we can just play wherever we want.
It's and I wonder, the biggest thing I'm sitting here wondering about is when the fuck are we going to just get dedicated X-Men movies again? Now that it's under the Disney banner, and it sounds like there's probably some legal things going on, and that's why. I was hearing today that well, if X-Men things happen for the foreseeable future, Bryan Singer still needs to be credited as a producer on them or something like that.
That's not going to go well.
And yeah, so it's okay, well, they don't want to give him any producer money, so yeah, fuck that guy. But it's at what point does that, okay, if that's what's going on, still give us some sort of timeline in terms of okay, well, here's when we're going to start, bringing the X-Men into the fold in a more, realistic way. But in the meantime, we've got weird little pop-ups that happen every now and then. And also, at what point are we going to get new X-Men performers instead of the Fox X-Men? And maybe there's some stuff even there legally too of I feel like I've heard that reports of that too of well, the Fox X-Men still have to be offered a role, offered their role until X number of years or something goes by.
Jeez, what kind of contracts were those, man?
I don't know.
I mean, there's a reason why Fox got sold off to Disney. It was not being run well.
Yeah, but yeah, so we'll see. But that's the thing that I'm most interested in is like, when are we going to? Because I think like obviously that's the like untapped potential of the MCU right now is give us MCU versions of X-Men stories. Don't give us the same X-Men stories that we've already like. Definitely don't give us a goddamn Dark Phoenix saga again.
We don't need it. We're gone.
Like,
We're good.
I don't doubt that the MCU would do an infinitely better version of it, but still, we don't need that a third time.
I don't need Age of Apocalypse. I don't like. Let's just do something completely different, please and thank you.
Yeah.
There's plenty of cool X-Men stuff we can pull from that isn't Age of Apocalypse, Days of Future Past, or Dark Phoenix. I know those are the most popular ones. There's more to it than that. Let's please move away.
It's also, I think, you also have like Fantastic Four will be kind of an interesting test bed.
Yeah.
Of like I mean, I think the potential downfall and issue of an X-Men film is going to be, well, we need to introduce a whole bunch of characters all at once, and we need to kind of serve a whole bunch of different subplots and stories of those characters. Eternals didn't really do that successfully. So Fantastic Four is kind of another test case of like, okay, here's how we do a team. Here's how we introduce a new team to the audience while also giving each of the members of the team an identity and a focus and a care. I feel like it's been a while. Like the biggest thing of the MCU was they built up to that for the original Avengers, and like Guardians is the most they've done of like, okay, here's a full team all in one go, and that's going to be the exception rather than the rule every day.
I think so, yeah.
So I think, yeah, it'd be the kind of thing of like, hey, yeah, if you can get over Bo DeMaio, having an OnlyFans account or something, give him reins to write some sort of X-Men movie, X-Men story, because he clearly had a good idea for what to do with X-Men 97.
He clearly helped put together a great team for X-Men
yeah.
97, yeah.
So,
even now that he's gone, the team he put together for it is still running on all cylinders and doing great. So, yeah.
We'll see how all that plays out. But yeah, so those are our spoiler thoughts on Deadpool and Wolverine, as well as some, extra just, hey, here's what came out of San Diego Comic-Con for Marvel stuff.
Because it just kind of happened that
it wrapped up this weekend too, yeah. Very interesting timing on all that. I wonder if they would have liked to have had it be like, hey, let's have like, hey, probably would have loved to have been able to really sell and announce, yeah, we're the number one, highest, grossing movie of the year and all that stuff. But they didn't know that, for sure, this weekend. So anyway, that is going to do it for this episode of That Nerdy Site Show. Thank you, Cam, for joining me to talk all things Deadpool and Wolverine here. You can follow Cameron at Rev Cabot, 2 B's and 2 T's. What do you want to shout out there, Cam?
I'm streaming. Anybody who doesn't know, I stream Monday through Thursday. I stream every Monday through Thursday from about 2:30 till about 5, a little after 5 p.m. Just streaming for a couple hours in the afternoon. That may take a hit depending on like what happens with subbing and stuff when school starts back up. So we'll see, because Daddy's got to make some money. But yeah, we'll see what happens with that. If you haven't yet checked it out, they're all up as VODs, currently up as That Nerdy Streams. Go ahead and check those out. I've been playing a lot of Zenless Zone Zero, but I've also played Flintlock, Siege of Dawn, as well as Dungeons in Hinterberg, which is a very cozy, kind of Zelda-esque dungeon crawlery type game. So go ahead and check that out. It's both games very, very good. If you watch those full Let's Plays, basically was what they end up being in VOD. As VODs, they're technically Let's Plays now. If you watch those, towards the end, I kind of give them each a score, so you can kind of pick up on what I was feeling about it. But also you kind of get to see how I kind of like run through a game and enjoy it. So yeah, that and a lot of Zenless Zone Zero, because that game is actually pretty good. So.
Is that what you think you're going to be playing more of this week?
Probably. It seems to be like a pretty solid game for me to play. We'll see what happens, but more than likely that's the case.
Cool.
More Zenless Zone Zero, and then Thursday tends to be like the day that I do something completely different.
Okay.
So.
Cool. You follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. Just realizing that I've had the That D Plus show logo up the entire episode. Whatever. It doesn't matter. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
For the 10 people who watch this on YouTube. But yeah, thank you for joining us. Shout out to that D Plus show where we did Deadpool 2. We did Logan a couple weeks ago. We've been doing The Acolyte a lot. Now that is all done, we are dedicating August to going back to the 90s and doing some 90s live action films. We're talking about stuff like Camp Nowhere and Rookie of the Year and Heavyweights and just fun 90s movies of our childhood. Looking forward to hitting those up over the course of the next few weeks. So if any of that feels like your vibe, come check it out over on that D Plus show. And that's going to do it. So you can follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site or go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest from us. If you like what you heard, please remember to rate, review, like, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Thank you for listening. Stay nerdy. Be good to each other. And that's it. I don't have an outro because I tried to do an outro for Deadpool 2 and Cameron gave me shit. So there you go.